Sandra? Sandra?
Greetings, friends. I am DJ, and today we are doing something new to the channel. So throughout my life, I've been a very big fan of the series Friday the 13th. I've collected all the movies, I've been to conventions and actually met several of the Jason actors. I even have some slight past experiences making masks. This one was actually my first from about, it had to have been a decade ago. It was back when Fright Stuff was still in operations. I've even made Jason costumes in the past. I made one based off the Part 6 design that my father wore a few times. But with that said, I haven't made any Jason costumes in years, not since 2017, I want to say it was. So I've spent the last few weeks doing some research and writing down some notes. And I've decided that I'm going to start making Jason costumes again. The first costume I'm going to make is going to be the Friday the 13th Part 2 costume, which was worn by Steve Dash, rest in peace, and Warrington Gillette, along with some various crew members in the film. So in my research, I have been able to find out almost the exact clothes that were used for the costume in Part 2. So, the costume is made of 4 basic pieces: the coveralls, the flannel shirt, brown boots, and the, not burlap, but most likely canvas or just basic fabric mask, or the potato sack, as a lot of people call it. So for the overalls, what was used was the Lee Vintage Medium Wash from the 70s to 80s. It's no longer in production. You could find it on eBay or secondhand marketplaces for as little as $200, which I am not going to do right now, probably ever. So what I did was I just went on Amazon and found some red cap overalls for $35, and that is what I'm going to be using for this. For the flannel shirt, one from the brand Simply Basic was used. Again, this is no longer in production. You can only find it way overpriced on the secondhand market. So what I purchased was from the brand And Now This in the navy blue color. For the boots, it was a US Army rough out World War II boot, which for the 3rd time is not in production anymore. However, Doc Martin has a replica of the boot running for the $200 to $300 range. So if you would like an exact replica, you can get those. However, I'm not spending that money. So I looked through my own clothes, through old shoes that I have, some stuff that I haven't been able to wear, and I found some Rockports that were almost the exact same basic coloring and design, and that is what I'm going to use. For the mask, it wasn't a potato sack, it wasn't a pillowcase, it wasn't burlap, it was just a green colored fabric with a shoelace or some sort of string tied around the neck, a whole bunch of dirt on it, and a hole cut into the eye. So I bought just some basic fabric from Walmart, and I'm going to be using that to make this mask. As you can see here in my notes, I actually have it drawn out sizing roughly of what I'll be doing. Also for this project I have paint in brown oxide and black, roll paper towels, a pencil, a container for the paint, some pins, scissors, thread and a needle, and some sandpaper. Alright, the first thing I'm going to do is apply some light weathering to these pants. I'm going to start at the ankles and just work my way up and see how it goes. I'm also going to have to take off this red cap logo here. Luckily it's only popped on. There's some stitches put in the back. They'll be nice and quick. There we go. You can barely tell it was even on there to start with. After sanding down the overalls, I quickly went over it with a lint roller. As you can see, a lot of fabric came off on this. Alright, after the sanding process, I put the overalls through a wash in the washer and dryer just to pull up any extra fabric that might have been loose in the lint trap. And I will do the same for the shirt when we get to that. Just wait for that. But for now, since we're ready, the next step will be to paint. And for that, I have with me the black and brown paint that I showed earlier, as well as the paper towels that we'll be using. So our process to start with is pretty simple. We're just going to take some paper towel, our black paint, and just smudge some of that in there. Then with this, we're just going to dab it onto the cuffs of the pants up to a little bit onto the leg. Also, chances are you're going to get some paint on yourself. Alright, so we're finished on the pant legs, and I noticed as I started that it tended to come out pretty blotchy with the pat and smear method I was using. So I adjusted on the second pant leg for more of a just smear straight across on it. I believe that came out a lot better looking. So with the pant legs themselves out of the way, I wanted to actually add some onto the chest. And with that, I also need to use some of this paint to try and hide these red stitching patterns throughout this thing, because that is a detail that is not present in the original costume. So what I'm currently thinking is start at the top and just sort of go down the middle a little bit to maybe around the zipper line, and then add on to the sides a little bit and cover this up. And you know what? Maybe I'll even go onto the back too, up here near the top. So let's see how that goes. the next thing that we'll be working on is the shirt. Now what we're going to be doing with this is pretty similar to the overalls. In the film there's not much weathering on it aside from around the cuffs of these sleeves, so that's what we're going to be focusing on. First things first is going to be scuffing around the edge of this with some scissors. And then we'll just be sanding around the edges. Alright, the next step with the shirt is to apply the weathering of the paint, which is standing in for dirt, I suppose. The method here is going to be the exact same as the method that we did on the overalls, so it should be pretty quick and simple with this. Alright, and here we have the result of the shirt. Got some nice darkening around the cuffs here, some streaking up the arms. And since most of it's going to be covered by the overalls, I don't want to do any more painting on the main torso of it. So a lot simpler than the overalls themselves. And the cuffs are also curling out a bit, which is a nice little unintentional detail, but I very much like that. And last but not least, we have the mask. For here I have the fabric that I got from Walmart. I took the total length, cut that in half, and then simply just folded it in half over itself to make the front and back of the mask. Got down some notes and sizings that I'll be using. So let's see. We're going to start from the top. Make a mark at about 25-ish inches. Make that mark all the way across the bottom of this. About 2 inches from the top, I'll be making another point. Alright, near the top, I'll be making a 12-inch wide mark. There and there. About halfway down from the top to the bottom of my marks. So that it's going to be 11 and a half. I'm going to make a 14-inch wide mark there. About 2 inches from the bottom, make a 20-inch wide mark. 20 inches wide. So the important points are here, here, way up here, here. Here and here. With those points, I will simply trace the edges of where the mask is going to be. Around the top edges a little bit. So that's going to be our guiding line, if you could see it. From there, we're going to pin down the front to the back. You could use any kind of needle or pin to hold these together. Make sure you don't accidentally poke yourself. Alright, there we have it. All pinned down. is ready for the next step, which is take our fabric scissors and just cut across that line. Actually, let me just say this, it's best if you cut slightly outside of the line, so we do adjustments later on, not directly on the line. And there we have it. Here we have the leftovers, which, if you're doing a remake, Jason, this could work for his version of the sack head mask. Alright, and then our next step would be to actually sew this thing together, front end to the back end. Alright, there's our sewed mask. What we gotta do is take these pins off, flip it inside out, make the mark for the eye, and then dirty it up. Alright, I got the mask on, so now what we're going to do is just mark where my eye is. And then that we're going to cut out so I could see it. Alright, so we're simply just going to draw just a mark roughly where we're going to cut. Alright, there you got it. And you know what, while I'm at it, let's just snip off the edges of these shoelaces. And give ourselves a nice necktie with that. So our last step is going to be adding weathering to the mask. The film is not just a stark white, it's covered in dirt, mostly around the eye here. Here I have my paint, extremely watered down. This is actually mostly water with some paint mixed in it. And to make sure that it doesn't bleed through, I put a piece of cardboard in there to keep that safe. I do have a reference photo off screen just to see exactly where the weathering is. So let's see how this turns out. Alright, there we have it. After mixing in some extra black with my paint and letting it dry for a bit, some smudging and smearing, I'd say this is about done. Just gotta put the necktie on when we have the mask on, and then from there it should be finished. So let's see what that looks like. And here's the finished product. Got our boots, overalls, flannel, mask, and this old prop mache. Honestly, not too bad for the first time trying this. I only really made one other costume that wasn't really based off of any movie. Just some dirty up, torn up work clothes. Well, yeah, I'm actually pretty proud of the result of this. I'm probably going to do a second one on this mask. Probably have a thicker material because it's very much see-through. And there we have it.